Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. Today we ended up seeing a surprise title update in Black Ops 7 in Warzone, and with it, while it wasn't a major download, it is a required download for everybody. The 1.89 update was only like 500 megs on PlayStation or something. In it, we got a bunch of new patch notes for multiplayer, zombies, for Warzone, for Endgame, primarily focused on weapon tuning. There's a lot of meta updates in general, with this patch itself. So let's dive right into the patch notes here. First up, the global updates for weapon tuning in multiplayer and zombies. Today's weapon update includes Maddox adjustments, improvements to the Sturmwolf 45 and AK-27 Battlescar conversion based on early feedback, and adjustments to the mod in Dravik. There are several changes to prestige attachments as well, which will continue to make sure are offering a compelling choice for all weapons. So in general, base sprint to fire times used with the Gung Ho perk now match base sprint to fire times for all weapons. In general, here with the rifles on the Maddox, this became a very strong option because of its fast TTK in close quarters and its easy recoil. We like to keep the close quarters damage high, as that was the core weapon identity back in BO4. It's received significant range and recoil nerfs, however, so the range drop off is pretty harsh there. Medium damage nerf, and then also a long damage nerf as well for multiplayer. Recoil increase and movement speeds reduced there as well. They also ended up adjusting the Echo Fire barrel with its overall range. On the M15 mod, this continues to be stronger than we'd like in its versatility, mainly when it comes to the mid-range. The most significant changes here are to the max damage range and the damage in the mid-range, which removes the ability to reduce TTK with a single headshot mixed in. So here, close damage range is reduced, and then that medium damage is actually nerfed there. Slide to fire time increased, all hip spread values increased, and movement speeds reduced there. On the AK-27, the Battlescar conversion was designed for slow firing, heavy hitting hybrid between rifle and marksman rifle gameplay. The reliance on headshots for a competitive TTK made it too punishing. So here, the fire rate penalty was reduced a decent bit, removed the movement penalties, ADS time penalty reduced, sprint to fire time penalty reduced, addressed an issue with the comb attachments used by the Battlescar conversion as well. On the Maverick here, they adjusted the pulse load barrel, damage range penalty reduced, ADS time improvement increased, sprint to fire time improvement increased, movement speed improvements increased as well. On the Mirage, the range actually got a buff there, so that's not too bad. And then also the launcher adjustment here, burst fire delay improved, and then the swap time from the prestige launcher improved as well. With subs here, the Sturmwolf is designed around a low recoil and favorable headshot damage compared to other SMGs. We want it to be a bit more effective than where it's currently sitting, so we want to make it more versatile basically. We're opting to double down on the headshot characteristics across the base weapon, the damage barrel, and the prestige attachment. So max damage was buffed a tad bit there. Then on the additional Sturmwolf 45 attachments, headshot multiplier increased. On the 15-inch barrel, headshot multiplier increased. Vertical recoil control penalty reduced, and then same deal with horizontal. Then on the 40 cal mag, the medium damage range 2 damage was actually buffed a little bit. They also adjusted its control and its headshot multiplier. On the Kogot, this is a minor adjustment, but prevents the Kogot 7 from further reducing its TTK at long range, so its long damage was slightly nerfed there. Raiden adjusted the gun kick and view kick on the recoil pattern. Razor on the Sidewinder barrel, horizontal and vertical improvements increased. Recoil stabilization improvement increased, ADS time penalty increased, sprint to fire time penalty increased. The Dravik is receiving a substantial range reduction across the board. The combination of great range and extremely low recoil made it too good, basically. So range gets nerfed heavily across the board there. Also, the ADS time was slightly increased there. The Carbon is on the low end of the SMG usage, so we're making some sizable changes. In a lot of ways, the Carbon will now previously occupy the space that was occupied by the Dravik 45. So its damage gets buffed across the board here, and its range is better beyond its max damage range. The Carbon can be really good in MP now. They also adjusted the ADS time, sprint to fire time increased, tac sprint to fire time increased, slide to fire, dive to fire increased, and also addressed an issue that caused the iron sights to be misaligned. On the MPC, they're doing a slight recoil improvement. They're also making some adjustments to a couple of the hip spread attachments in preparation for the new zero hip spread aftermarket part that's coming there. So they reduced the random deviation on gun kick and view kick, sprint to fire. Hip spread improvement also reduced. And then on the damage barrel here, the range ended up getting buffed a little bit as well. Sprint to fire hip spread improvement reduced as well on the tactical scale stock. On LMGs on the Sokol, some recoil changes have came for this to give it a small lift in general, especially with the slower fire model or mode for that. So reduced recoil of default fire mode, reduced view kick strength as well there. On the M8, the prestige attachment revolves around tac stance, and we have a couple of changes to improve that build path. So the spread improvement is basically better now with that. On the Ion, approved shot queuing window to prevent accidental follow-up bursts. On the Velox, the prestige barrel on the Velox is all about close quarters and agility. There was an issue with the swap speed improvement that we fixed. We're also juicing up some of the accuracy and weapon motion improvements since it goes up against the damage range in its node. So on this prestige barrel now also improves regular hip spread, jumping and landing stability improvements increased, and addressed an issue that prevented the swap speed benefits from applying. The Coda, the new adaptive discharge mod in the prestige attachment, interact in a way that it's detrimental to its ADS fire. We always try to design new attachments to be compatible with prestige attachments and ideally have them synergize. In this case, we looked at some options to make these two attachments work together, but due to the implementation, we'd have to compromise the current design or the tuning. And since we like how the two currently sit on their own, we decided to just block players from having both of them available. Then on the Arc, shots no longer queue during the overheat cooldown to prevent accidental fire. On the Ravager, adjusted an issue that could cause the Ravager from having a slightly slower velocity and a greater arc than intended. On the Ballistic Knife, getting swapped off the Ballistic Knife after firing the last blade felt bad, so it'll now stay in your hands. Then a couple of multiplayer general updates here. A couple of map updates, added collision on Fringe, Yakei, Meltdown, and then Flagship was temporarily removed a few days ago. We also have Bankroll, closed an exploit where Bankroll could grant all perks. Equipment, Stim Shot, addressed an issue preventing XP progression on the Stim Shot. Huge fix there. You can finally overclock and upgrade your stims. Reduce the frequency of the announcer voice lines in the ghouls. Couple of stability updates as well. In zombies here, they are tracking several updates for augments that'll be out soon. Address an issue where the after action report could show an armory unlock for the Ravager even if you already had it, and then various stability fixes. Then in in-game here, address an issue where party members can be pulled out of the in-game cinematic early. Address an issue where calling in a Rhino or power armor while holding a melee weapon would cause the player to lose their exotic weapon and a rarity as well. That would suck. Then also an issue where supply crates can be opened more than once. So some solid updates here. Now let's jump over to the Warzone patch notes. So we also have our January 13th update here. Keep in mind, if you guys enjoy the video, you found the info helpful, do me a favor, drop a like on it. And if you're new here, you want to make sure you're always in the know for everything going on in COD. No better place than right here. So feel free to hit that subscribe button and turn on those post notifications. For this weapon adjustments, we've taken several targeted adjustments in today's update from our partners at Treyarch for BO7. Also, the Velox Akimbo has been nerfed here. So on the AK-27 Battle Scar, conversion removed the movement penalties. On the Mirage tandem launcher, burst fire delay improved, and then the swap time also improved there. On the Maverick, the pulse load barrel reduced the range penalty, sprint to fire speed improved, ADS speed improved. Carbon addressed an issue with the iron sights being misaligned. On the Razor Sidewinder barrel, several new updates to control, stabilization, sprint to fire, and ADS. On the right-in, adjusted the gun kick and the view kick. On the M8, on the Prestige detachment here, the Striker tac stock, tac stance improvement increased, flinch penalty reduced there as well. On the Ion, they improved the burst queue up there so you're not accidentally spraying a new burst. And then on the Velox Akimbo, 50% damage reduction. We recognize this may seem like an extreme nerf, but the intention of this change is to bring it more in line with what we expect of close range weapons and akimbo attachments. It was outperforming other close range options, and this change is intended to keep the close range meta healthy without an obvious outlier. Probably an overdue nerf there, let's be honest. The arc shots no longer queue during the overheat. On the Ravager, they fixed an issue with the slower velocity and greater arc than intended. And then a couple of bug fixes here. Fixed an issue responsible for the most frequent disconnects during a match. That's good news. An issue that prevented free-to-play players from using voice and text chat. That's big too. An issue with the comb attachments and the Battle Scar conversion. An issue that could cause a crash when navigating to the Core 45 aftermarket part. An issue where the pre-match loading screen didn't actually give you objectives, and then also an issue where the eject and detonate button prompts didn't work on a player's custom keybind there. So an interesting little meta update here, the main thing being that Velox nerf, but that's what changed in the surprise title update today. That's going to wrap things up. Once more, if you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like on your way out, and if you're new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.